That's cool. Cool. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Unless you butchered it since
Hey.
yesterday.
Paper I throw away.
You gotta keep the perimeter straight.
I hope you don't throw it away.
I cleaned out my car the other day. It was all this stuff.
Thank you.
I'm having a
Yeah, I just think it
full of
hopefully
it.
Oh, yeah. I don't have that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, it'll be in that cabinet.
I wanna, I
Golden
wanna
Street.
look at something for a few years.
Okay.
Mhm.
Then we'll worry.
Gonna need
You know, it was
these.
originally sold.
It happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially late in the day, my eyes are super fuzzy right now.
What are we doing?
That's why we have big.
Mr. Mayor, we're at 6
Oh,
o'clock.
gee. Welcome to the study session, July 25th. It's called order. Donna, will you do a roll call, please?
I will. Councilmember Bode,
Here.
Councilmember Sherman. Here. Councilmember Gutierrez.
Here.
Marinesco,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Schmidt.
Here.
Councilmember McDowell. And Councilmember Peterson.
Here.
Thank you, Donna.
You're welcome.
Today we have Public Works Director Jay Harris, an update about street standards.
Good evening, Council, Jay Harris and Brent Armstrong. I'm a Public Works Director. And Brent is helping me like no tomorrow without a city engineer. Brent is a wastewater and storm superintendent, but he's come over from that group. Been at Civic Center for about six months now. Helping out, making a big difference. I'd like to also call out Aaron Hicks. He's our new capital projects manager. This is Aaron's second day at the city, and he just got done a resolution and a briefing for you folks, actually two different ones. I haven't checked them yet, okay? But we have high hopes for Aaron. He attended meeting with our funding partners at Washout today and got a lot of nausea and some pain from those people at Brockdale and funding and DBE and all sorts of things. And Aaron is still here tonight. So it's going good. We're doing good here. So you'll see more of Aaron around. He's helping. We have a backlog of projects and you're going to see some of them after the streets presentation. So Brent Armstrong here is going to give the presentation. This is the third presentation about what do we do for infill development lots. So this is a follow-up to other prior meetings. Brent, you're up.
So yes, we'll start with the current issues. We've gone over this a few times, but trying to eliminate some of our infill issues that we have and get some clarity for developers and staff on what we're gonna do in some of these parcels. Picture here, you got a sidewalk to know where if that developed partially, but the rest of the street is developed out, so it's not gonna get extended any further, at least by anyone developing. If we decide to put it on the critical pedestrian route at some point, then we would probably come in and extend those facilities. We're trying to not only make it as simple as we can for the developers cost wise, but also get a quality product at the end that we can maintain easier. And then gravel and through roadways, we'll touch on what we're suggesting we put in there and take your feedback and implement it. So the critical pedestrian routes are our interconnected routes to get us through the city, through the neighborhoods, downtown and businesses, connect to parks, trails, basically to get around the city without having to be in the roadway as much as possible. And then we have developed parcels, which are already have an existing home. They already have water, sewer services. And then development. These are some of the definitions that we're development and infill and undeveloped parcels that we're going to be adding to our standards. Man-made changes to improved or unimproved properties, buildings, homes, reconstruction additions, et cetera. We just want to kind of make it easy for a developer to come in and see where the actual land the standards are gonna hit. Infill development is the big one that we've been going through, and the current round of definitions that we have is infill development is an undeveloped parcel with frontage or frontages that have a distance of undeveloped frontage of 150 feet or less in length. So if you take a 350-foot lots in a row, that won't, if they're over 150 feet, that's not going to trigger the infill stuff. And that's kind of where kind of said we were talking about the 3 lots, maybe 4 lots, whatever. We figured a footage might be a better kind of range to say, okay, you're less than 150 feet, you don't have to do the improvements. You get over 150 feet, then we're going to have that much sidewalk done on a block that we can continue on to when we beef up the sidewalk.
Only in front of their parcel. So if there's 3 parcels owned by 3 different people, that person just has to do the one.
Yes, it would be just their frontage.
Okay, yeah, okay.
And there's a little sidewalk matrix on the next page or so, that will show you that.
So
We actually did the text box, the yes, no flow chart in the following pages. So.
like the idea of a length being associated with that. I don't know. And I guess talk to me about it, but when you put 150 feet, if it's 149 or 151, that means something, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, are we gonna argue with people over a foot? They're gonna argue with us and take us to court and they're gonna.
Probably
it's
not,
149
but the
feet.
problem we had when you search sand lots, we have some lots that are 30
I know.
feet, some lots that are 70 feet. And it was just too nebulous on what length are we really looking for? And so we sort of got set on a lot of lots are 50 feet that typically give you 3 lots,
Yeah.
2 lots, 3 lots, 4 lots, somewhere in that range. And then, you know, if you were under that, you wouldn't have to do full street improvements.
Right.
If you were over that, you would have at least 151 feet of street, right?
So I get you.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to it. I just was
And
preparing for the argument. It's
part of the reason too is most of our blocks are around 300 feet.
Yeah.
We're
half a block.
half a block.
And it's clear, it's a lot better than if you're 3 lots in, like you're saying, I mean, I like the length a lot more. And it's just kind of non-negotiable. I mean, if you're over, you're over, if you're under, you're under, it stinks, It's the same with connecting to a sewer. I mean, if you're within that zone, you're in the zone, if you're over it, you're over it, like. And it's a set number.
And then definition of undeveloped parcel that has no existing or former building or structure, does not have existing sewer or water, hasn't had it to the site.
Right, and Brent brought up something earlier that we want to talk to you about. There's been parcels where the house was demolished 15, 20 years ago. Probably sewer and water to the site, and there was a house there at one time, trying to figure out when it was put in, when it was taken down, what services there were. But it wouldn't fall under the definition of this redeveloped site, okay? Oh, I'm sorry, undeveloped site, but it would fall under redeveloped site, which we'll get to in a little bit. So I had a good answer to Brent's question. I just want to see what you guys think about the answer, okay? So remember that when we get to redeveloped site.
And then unimproved street, we talked about this a little bit last time. On kind of defining that, so right away. That does not have any street improvements or existing. Street improvements are less than 20 feet in width. We're kind of running that with fire code, so if there's like a little 10-foot. Path that people are using to cut through, you can take like 8th and Wyandotte or 9th and Wyandotte up there, you know, there's a little trail that connects them in, stuff like that. It's really an unimproved street, even though people can kind of get through there, the fire department can't use it.
Well, like
So-
Puget, that's not very wide.
Yeah,
Maybe
but
20 feet, but it's, yeah.
Yeah,
It's
it's
not a whole lot
probably,
wider.
there's not much more than it, right?
Yeah.
So we set the minimum street standard to be called an improved street. Meets fire code, that's 20 feet and it has to handle the 75,000 pound loaded fire truck with all the guys and equipment on it. If it's not that, then it's an unimproved street, which is fine, but we need to designate between the two. Because the goal is to get all streets to improved standard, well, at least support the fire truck and the width. Then we gotta get them paved next and do other things. But the goal is to make sure that the service providers can get to all residents. So that's why that was set. So some of these little skinny roads and stuff, we're saying they're unimproved streets, even though they have some gravel and stuff on them, they still don't meet fire department standards.
So we would work on that.
We're gonna work on that, yeah.
And if in anything, we can say to people, we've got to get these done for the fire trucks and the ambulances and.
That's correct. They need to meet that minimum standard.
And this is the meat of the section, and I'm not gonna just round through it, I'll just hit on some highlights of it, but these are kind of what we've gathered in these discussions on what the standards are going to go to. So, except for infill developments, all new development projects, redevelopment sites, we're gonna have them build out to street frontage, identified in section 2.1 or 2.100. And street and or alley and frontage improvements, corner lots, they're responsible for their frontage all the way around on the corner and to the intersection. So they're going to need to make that so fire can turn around. It's a dead end. Local streets are going to be improved so they can allow two-way traffic, parking along the project frontage, curbs, landscaping, trees, utility easements if needed, and right-of-way dedication if needed. Frontage improvements on collectors and arterials. We're gonna have them in turn lanes as needed, striping, medians, bike lanes, and also additional right-of-ways.
Brent, touch on the dedication real quick. If that's if the platted street, is 20 feet wide and we require 32 feet wide total right of way, then somebody developing on the one side would dedicate half of what's needed. So there's 12 feet, they dedicate 6 feet on that side, correct?
Yeah. And most of that dedication is due to get the facilities that we need in there and make them be in the right of way, not in an easement.
So these are for the larger sites. You develop a 20-foot wide roadway that's two-way traffic and parking along your frontage, not for the small under 150 feet and under. These are for the bigger sites, which is a lot of sites, right? There's a lot of sites that will need to do this. These are, the 400 feet of frontage, the whole blocks are undeveloped. Those type of things are what we're talking about here. That at a minimum, people need to pass on the roadway. It needs to be built to fire department structural section. And you need to put a curb and a sidewalk and your parking area in. So that's what that's saying.
I have a question up top on except infill development sites, all new developed projects, and when we're talking short plats, when are you looking to have these done though, as it's built out? So like, does infrastructure have to be brought into those short plats? Can we short plat it and then as say a short plat of a lot and I sell off because of two of the lots? Will I be able to finish that short plat before I have to do any improvements?
The
Does
plat
that make sense?
The plat could be recorded, but
No
before
bill.
you get a building.
Okay.
permit,
we won't issue a
You
building.
you can
permit is the way it
sell
reads.
a lot, and if you sold it to someone else before they got a building permit, they would need to install.
Okay.
the
So,
frontage.
okay, perfect. What about any infrastructure type things, bringing water, sewer in? Does that done at the time of permitting as well?
Water and sewer, we can.
Yeah,
accept them.
the streets will have to go, all public improvements will need to be installed before we'll issue a building permit.
But
You get into a lot of problems if you issue building permits while people are still building streets and not bringing the sewer all the way in and it's not deep enough and it just goes on and on and on, so.
But you can get the short plat done
Yep.
And then it's
You get
all,
it
it's
for-
all triggered by building.
And then
permits.
you
Thank
bonded for the improvements too. We have plans and you bonded for the improvements.
Fantastic.
Okay.
Thank you.
Question on that paragraph, just I'm trying to read it as a non-developer, right? So as I understand this, infill development is also potentially a redevelopment site, but not all redevelopment sites are infill development, correct? Because this is starting off with an except, right? So except for infill. But basically, if you're,
Oh, you're
if
one.
yeah, essentially, sorry. So if somebody purchases a lot that we deem an infill lot and they want to build on it again, that's a redevelopment site.
If it's had a development, if it's had a house. on it before.
Yeah.
And that's where.
So that would negate then the except part, right?
Then it would not be-
For this language.
So we would have a sidewalk to nowhere. Right there, there's gonna be houses on the entire street except for that one lot for the house burnt down 25 years ago.
Wait till you get to
That's
the
the one
redevelopment.
That's what I.
That's what I'm talking about. Hopefully I figured that out when Brent asked the question. I was going, oh, no.
Well, you mentioned that redevelopment.
Yeah, that
on
I
the
put
lot
that
with the-
earlier.
Okay.
So what Joe asked is that infill is where there was a house that burnt down, there's sewer line, water line, that's an infill, no.
That's redevelopment.
Redevelopment.
It doesn't meet the definition of infill site. And when we get to the redevelopment site in the next page or so, I'll show you how that works. And we can still change all this, right?
So that's. I don't wanna say that's what we've been led to think, because that's not true either. We've been believing that infill are those homes that previously existed on a lot, right? And you can rebuild a house there. And when we talked about GFCs, that's another one. We talked about GFCs, it's like, oh, if there was a house there, I don't know what the stipulation was, 5 years, 10 years, something like that, then there's no GFCs because there previously was. But if there hasn't been any development, right, it's kind of like, they gotta start over and it's redevelopment.
The water service was
Yeah.
existing, I think
So what?
that's the kicker, right?
It's been sitting.
GFCs and.
Yeah.
And vacant parcel.
And I think that there's an actual. It's 04 was the cutoff because we didn't have it before then.
Do you pay a GFC if your house was prior to 04 because there was no impact fees?
That's
sit-
another,
yeah.
that's another.
I'm totally under the water on this because I understood that infill was where there used to be a house and no water and sewer would do it. and
Infill is
it's
just a
still there.
lot that is. essentially-
Never been built on.
Never been
But it's
built.
platted, right? It's a paper lot.
It's a parcel.
There are parcel lines that identify that lot on a map somewhere, but there's no house or development on it. Rather than a large 40-acre parcel or 100-acre parcel that
And
it's
it's,
lot lines on it.
I mean,
when we get to redevelopment, if that's not what you want for the standard that we. The conditions that we put on redevelopment for residential. We thought maybe we could put a year on that, something that's easier that we don't have to go look back to. 19.
Well, we
Yeah.
know if there's water there, there's gonna
Right.
be a meter out front, right?
See, though, they get lost. We found one on a lot over here that no one knew there was water there.
Very difficult.
Asset
Well,
management.
We're working on that. We got a new GIS guy doing that
Yeah.
right now. But
You have to go
But
there.
it's still, I mean, all these years, that the goal with the infill lots is to get somebody to build a damn house on it. And if it were, we want to make it as easy as possible.
And the redevelopment
Do that.
site is easy. You want to just go to that section? real
Let's do
quick?
it.
Yeah,
Let's show this up.
We actually found 2 sewer lines that were tapped as well, that no one.
They go to page 7.
I'll just I'll get all that worked out. Where are we?
Some of
Um,
some of it's just not that.
So the first part of redevelopment site is any site that's outside the neighborhood residential zoning district where the value of the proposed improvements of to the building or structure exceeds 50% of the value of the existing structure by an architect. That's in a commercial zone, okay? So if you go over 50%, like the courthouse over there, the old Safeway building, right? They went way over 50% of the existing building value. Full frontage improvements apply, sidewalks, curbs, ramps, streets, all of that, okay? So that's in the commercial districts, okay? Then you jump down to the neighborhood residential zoning district down the bottom. Okay, and the way that reads is you extend the house burned down, it hasn't been there in a zillion years. but it's still a redevelopment site. It's residential, it's in the NR zone. And you just have to extend the existing street improvements for all streets and alleys. And then we're getting you for the 8-foot parking. So if it's a gravel road there, you extend the existing gravel road. Whatever's abutting you is what you put in, but we're having you pave a parking strip. So all the standards have you pave the parking in front of your house for the most part, is the way it currently lands. So that's how we dealt with the redevelopment site. So if you look at the pictures down at the bottom, those are both residential homes. And if that house wasn't there and they want to put a new house in a replacement structure, it happens a lot down the road. These are extremely old houses. 20 years from now, you know, as the city climbs and keeps going, there's likely there's going to be replacement structures on these. Okay. Time heals some of this, right? A place like Lake Oswego, all the houses were replaced. I mean, we're not Lake Oswego, Oregon, but someday we might be with, you know, good data and all that. Anyways, but this person in the picture on the bottom left there would be they'd be required to extend any improvements to their site. Well, it already has a road and a sidewalk all the way around, right? But it would be required to pave its parking strip in this instance. When you build your new house, you pave the parking in front of your house, and then you're done there. On the one on the right there, same thing, that little house goes away someday, someone puts a new house, it's a redevelopment site, you're paving the parking strip there.
Do we,
So,
are we good with that sidewalk though? Would we be requiring them to upgrade that sidewalk as well?
So the sidewalk standard in the code right now requires the owner to maintain it and keep it in repair. So if it fell into disrepair, our current code already has, you know, code enforcement would, you know, talk to them and get them to comply with, if it's all cracked and offset and topsy-turvy.
But we'd allow like that, because just from looking at it in this picture, that looks like it's good, but that doesn't meet today's standards. So would we allow them to keep that though? Because it is there, or are we gonna make them bring that to today's standard?
The way it's written right now, that sidewalk would be left,
Okay,
but
so,
it'd be repaired to make sure there's no tripping happen.
understood, sorry.
Right.
so that's a corner lot as well. And according to the plan here, they would have to pay, they would have to do all response, so that would that be ADA? Because it's a corner lot. Would they have to
No,
put
all
any-
they're doing is paving their frontage.
Paving, that's it.
That's it, and that stays the way it is. No
So-
sidewalk improvements, no ADA improvements.
So then like an example 4, that's a corner lot. Right?
Mhm.
So if they do. You know.
Now, this falls into the
That's
commercial standard. You're not residential anymore. That isn't in our zone. That's in general commercial. And so if that improvement exceeded 50% of the building value of the structure, you'd be required to put in street improvements there. This particular instance or not, they're just doing small
To meet standard.
to meet
So it'd be
sidewalks.
essentially be a redevelopment sidewalk and street to meet existing standard.
Yeah. So
But
it ends up
today
being-
we could require, they're just doing some tenant improvements in there, not a whole lot. It doesn't exceed the valuation of the building. This is Mason County. And so it's going to stay like that until someone redevelops that site.
And sorry, how do we define a corner lot?
It fronts two streets. We don't actually have a definition of corner lots in the code.
We just cover it by saying your entire frontage. Your front street
Well-
here and the.
We need to be clear on our, because we have a definition of frontage, and the frontage is the narrowest part of your lot. That's the frontage in our land use code. So we need to reconcile that, and
Okay.
make sure it's a frontage on a right of way. If it's within our street standards, right? Not just the frontage of the
I'll
house.
have to look at all the
Yeah,
definitions.
so,
and pull some of that.
Yeah, if you look, so,
Yeah,
so like my neighborhood, we don't have corner lots.
Right.
I have a 3-sided lot. I do not have a front yard. So even though I do, I don't have frontage, do I? It's a pot, 3
Yeah.
sides.
Yeah.
And who picks what's my front yard, my backyard, and my side yard?
the narrowest per the zoning code for land use, the narrowest part of the lot is your front. right, that fronts the street.
Okay,
So
so that's my side facing my neighbor's house.
is it addressed there as the main entrance there? Interesting. So it's spelled different than our code. But you would have three.
I have no sidewalks out in front of my.
But you would have three frontages under the existing example. You can front three.
Yeah.
Three streets in that, under that
One
example.
street.
One street,
One street. There's no other streets in my neighborhood. I don't have I live in a circle, in a loop.
yeah,
So
Oh,
I'm
yeah,
at the
yeah.
bottom end of it.
yeah,
I have
exactly right,
sides.
okay.
This is my argument when I put my fence in. Why can't I have a 6-foot fence all around my property? You can't have a 6-foot fence because that's your. What yard is it?
Side yard or front yard? Side yard up to the,
Up to
but if you're on it,
That's it.
if you're on a corner lot, it has to be set back, we fixed that now.
42 inches.
Oh, 42 inches, okay.
That has been addressed now and up there. Sorry.
It's like, that's taking it off.
What personal problems are coming at you now?
But yes, that is,
Yeah.
that's something we run into with.
But we shouldn't
fence permit
shouldn't
as well.
be building neighborhoods like that anymore.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, we want a grid system, right?
Yep.
We want intersections.
Yes, so
that are-
it is street, they have block link standards between local street to local street that is 150 feet now from street to street. So you would have two lots in your instance, because the streets would be 150 feet apart. So you wouldn't put, I don't think you'd put a lot, we might increase that spacing to 200. I'll go look at that to prevent your situation from happening. Do you know how deep your lot is?
No,
Okay, I'll go look.
yeah, it's an interesting one, you know,
Yeah.
because.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just, again, since we're going through trying to make things clear, it's like.
The devil's in the details here, right? And we
Yeah.
don't have a definition, it's gonna be ambiguous, so we need to make sure we have our definitions to clearly
That's it,
guide us.
and that's the tough part is because if it was something that was previously permitted and approved. Then, you
Correct.
know, in modern times.
Yeah.
It was built in the 90s, late
And
90s.
I think Jay's gonna talk about, there's gonna be instances we can't cover, right? We have to have allowances to address these in a reasonable way with a variance or a design modification that can be made administratively, right? We need to be able to manage these, and whether it's a cost threshold or some other threshold that allows us to do that administratively. Ultimately, that has to be done to keep things moving, not grind us to a standstill.
And how do we come to terms with the cost of the project with the developer?
50% under redevelopment?
Yeah, how do we?
Yeah, so the licensed architect needs to prepare that, it's in the definition, the licensed architect needs to prepare that estimate.
Thanks.
But, and then that's also though, you want to make aware in this situation. We talked about. What there's county or anyone else that they bought that building. They just moved in, they don't trigger.
Right, right,
But it's 50%, yeah, but we can put it in. Whatever we want,
It's consistent with the building code.
it is consistent.
Building code requires full current code if you exceed 50% of the valuation of the structure, not the property, the structure itself.
we just got a lot of stuff that looks like this, where it's half-assed and complete, you know, I'm not gonna lie, it's just. Sucks. There's not a mechanism to deal with it. Right,
And so. With that. So that's the redevelopment. Standard. Are you wanting to keep that way? Or? Because some of these lots. That have had a house and it's either burned down or been torn down. It's gonna land in the redevelopment. Are you good with having just been paved or parking in front?
Well, I mean. If you have a neighborhood with 20 houses in there and this is gonna be the only house with a sidewalk, I just.
Not a sidewalk, just that.
That's not what it's requiring. Yeah, the redevelopment is pave your part, unless there's a sidewalk adjacent to it, then you would extend it. Otherwise, if there's no frontage improvements at all, it could be a gravel road. All you're doing is paving your 8-foot parking stall or slip or lane in front of it. That's the
Where that-
redevelopment.
Just so you know where that came from, is you drive the streets with a lot of parking. I'd say a third of them are paved, but maybe half are paved, half of them are gravel. It's just sort of interspersed all over the place. And anyways, gravel, we don't maintain these, and there's some of the gravel areas that when we go overlay the road, we'll sometimes go sprinkle in, but they're lacking maintenance. And so we felt that paving it at least gives you a better place to unload your groceries and your guests to park and that sort of thing. And it's a little bit better maintained.
Yeah, for redevelopment, I'm fine with that. Right, as you guys explained. If there's gonna be a reconstruction per your definition, redevelopment per your definition.
You're basically matching up, right, with what's being cited, right?
Right.
So you're matching that up if it's there.
So I think I brought this up last time, big concern, somebody's house burns down completely to the ground. Insurance is paying for that structure to be rebuilt. Who's paying for the sidewalk if insurance doesn't pay it? And they don't have the money, they're 85-year-old couple that are getting their house rebuilt, who's paying for that improvements?
So that if there was a sidewalk adjacent, because the redevelopment clause would kick in, that they would have to extend that sidewalk.
So they don't have the money for it. Insurance gave them enough to build the house. That's it.
And they don't.
I don't believe insurance is gonna pay for a sidewalk.
Oh.
So,
But even if there isn't a sidewalk, they're still doing the paving.
Even parking strip.
Correct.
And I'm thinking of all those situations, I get it.
And that's not, that they're paving whether there's pavement beside them or not. So that's the biggest change in this that I'm hearing. It's a tough one because I can't switch between my hats as easy as I'd like to, because as a builder, I absolutely don't want to do it. Like, it seems ridiculous to me because if I just buy the info lot next door, I don't have to do it. But then I am bringing utilities, but I also probably might have to upgrade my utilities because I don't have the new meter.
No, the infill lot you're paving, everyone's paving their frontage.
Oh, everyone's
Every
done?
single
The
undeveloped
infills are paving. too?
infills are pavement to per.
So then the only difference-
recommendation from staff, which we can change, right? Everybody, if you go to the
Okay.
matrix, let's bring
Yeah, I
get
like
through
the
page 4,
Sorry.
okay? And then we'll go to the matrix and we'll talk a little more about that.
It's all Mark's fault. He wants our input.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so
We've got all night.
we got the question.
Let you know.
Jim, do you do DoorDash for your?
Yes, yes.
There is a box of chips in the back.
But
Not gonna need
Jay was
water.
complaining that we don't feed them, yeah.
Okay, so we were on, good with A, with the redevelopment. Figured that one out, okay, B. B, the only question we had was that corner lot in front, we'll figure that out. That frontage definition. So C, intern street. And intern off-site streets used to access and development. Except for infill development. Shall meet at least fire code, so if you have. Street to get to your property, you need to bring that up so the fire department can get there.
Well,
So this is that subdivision that's over there and they have a road that gets out to the paved road, right? We gotta get the fire department into, and this is more than 150 feet, right? Of frontage. We need to get the fire department to your site. I need that. The road needs to get improved so we can get them in and out of there.
only if they're redeveloping and building or something, not just somebody that's living there.
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
yes.
correct.
And I think, so Capitol Hill, although it's the county, there's that
Correct.
little duplex neighborhood.
Yeah.
Got a narrow street. I get what you're saying. And then you go in there, there's like 10 duplexes.
Yeah.
Back in there.
Yeah.
And that's in the UGA and something we'd likely inherit.
Correct, and then there's some development
Yeah,
adjacent to
so
that.
those houses up in here, or somebody wants to build on those parcels, then they're gonna have to.
Correct.
Why?
How does the fire?
Off of Wyandotte, there's, I think 10 goes through, and it's just a little roadway.
Yeah,
that
okay.
people go. So that would have to be brought to fire code to access, or if we didn't put it, if you were a small development, if you were a big development, without saying the gate, you put the full road.
Is there an in out on that where those duplexes?
One in
just-
and one out. Same entrance, yeah, just like my
They
neighborhood.
have to back, their fire trucks to back out?
Potentially.
They-
Make
They do
sure
like
there's
that, they do like
a
a
hammerhead
55
there.
point turn. back in.
You would
Unfortunately,
have to back up.
but
It's
that's
just like literally a straight. in.
substandard design standards bring us,
I wonder,
especially in the UGA, bring us
Yep.
these problems.
Yeah,
that we have.
a
to
lack of a
address.
common development code in the
Yeah.
UGAs.
But so an A above though, that it does say city and UGA.
Yeah.
So,
That's why I brought that up.
then I just need to talk to Mason County to make sure, because our street standards aren't adopted by Mason County. But I'm saying they apply as Mason County approves,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
I got a call them, right, which is fine. They don't have problems with higher level standards in the UGA. The goal is down the road is their street standards are in the UGA are our standards, right, down the road. So we all have the same
That's being
standards.
addressed, that's being addressed with our comp plan update and the common process for the countywide planning policies in the Shelton UGA being addressed between the county and the city too. So those mirror each other and we have some commonality in our development standards that isn't there now. And I think we have a good partnership building with the county to be able to establish those, so everybody's clear.
I'm sure you don't know the answer to this one, Mark, but how in the heck did the county get that? When those duplexes were built up there? How did that, with one road in and you had to back out?
At that time, it was a long time ago, at that time, back in the second, that far ago.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, there's.
So I
Certainly,
met whatever. we do.
So in this interim. Streets and off-site streets, is for all development, it's except. So it's. Hold on, designed to T22 gravel shoulders, storm drainage improvements, street lighting. No parking signs until it gets built out with parking on it. Additional improvements will be required for collectors and arterials such as turn lanes, wide shoulders, sidewalks. And then also we'll have to caveat in there, and it can be determined by the city engineer on a case by case basis. There's, and then to cover some of those areas that are hard to catch in all in one.
This is a larger development we're talking about. This is like Coffee Creek. What do they do to Deacon Road, right? There are gonna be a lot of cars using Deacon Road, right? This gives us a way to talk to the developers and say there's offsite mitigation. You need to do some things to these substandard roads offsite, because you're adding a lot of traffic to a collector roadway. Deacon's a future collector roadway. So, this gives some flexibility for our staff to say, hey, you're adding 1,000 trips per day here or whatever it is. And on a future collector roadway. So we thought this was a really good change. The city engineer obviously navigates it. They submit traffic reports and volumes and, Coffee Creek eventually is going to go down to Deegan, use railroad. And so we thought this was important, and this gives us the ability to, for a larger development, obviously on a collector roadway, to have them do some additional things.
but to clarify, in this instance, Deegan Road is in the UGA outside the city limits at this point, right? So we don't have a trigger and we're relying upon Mason County or even another jurisdiction, maybe the state of Washington in some instances, to determine what the proper development of that road section will be, right? And they might not have the best interests in mind long-term that the city might have as we take ownership of these facilities in the UGA. So we need to be upfront, we need to plan, we need to be strategic in the development standards that we adopt for some of these road sections, even outside the city's jurisdiction right now.
Deacon Road can't handle a high traffic volume right now. It
Deacon
is
Road's
pretty shot.
Isn't it like got a hill on one side or a slump on one side and a hill on the other?
That's west,
Oh, okay, we picked a lot.
east, against this side of it.
Yep.
Okay.
On the east side of 101, yeah. It's a dead end.
That goes to McWallen? That goes to McWallen?
Nope, the dead ends.
Someday, well, the comprehensive transportation plan shows it going all the way through.
D, it's just saying all improvements need to be designed by a licensed engineer for the state of Washington. In construction right of way improvements not associated with new developments, such as reconstruction of a roadway. Upgrading sidewalks, stormwater improvements. It's not necessary the roadway be improved to include all elements that go full frontage. To our standards. They shall meet the minimum. Base standards, is that?
Yeah, so
It's,
ADA and fire code standards, so what that is we're out and we're overlaying a road at Park Street, for example. And that there is no curb along a lot of Park Street, there's no sidewalk. That paving job doesn't trigger curbs and sidewalks and all that. But it does trigger fire code. If we're repaving a road, we need to, at a minimum, need to make sure the road is up to fire department standards. And then also, we're required if we're overlaying a road, that we have to meet ADA standards. So if there is any ADA ramps, and we'll be doing that like on Olympic Highway North, when we do our grind and inlay in the next year and a half or so, 2 years. Keep your fingers crossed if we can get money from the state, the grant money. But the ADA ramps along there will be improved. But if there was curbs and sidewalks missing, that paving project doesn't trigger full street improvements. Or if I go put in new storm drainage or a new sewer line, they wouldn't trigger the full street improvements, is what we're trying to say there.
And then this one.
This actually came from the old manual, by the way. I was about ready to delete it because I thought it was a little confusing. But then I decided it actually makes a little bit of sense because what I'm worried about is staff interpreting a paving overlay job or a water line job with a bunch of services and stuff as having to put in curb, sidewalk, half street improvements and that sort of thing. So I can see where the fire code, they need to meet, whatever they're doing, need to meet any fire code standards. So if you dug in a new water line, you're not having to meet fire code standards because you're not doing anything with the street. This could be a gravel road, right? I put in a water line. I need to put the gravel road back in the way I took it out probably, but you don't need to necessarily meet fire code standards. So it allows staff to at least say, hey, no, that project, you don't need to install street improvements. So the switch can sort of go both ways. And I understand the look on your face, it's a little confusing. So,
Well,
We would want to put those in if we had the funding. for
Right.
them.
yeah,
we want,
Right.
that's right. It would be encouraged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess that's my
And
thing.
that the big thing was ADAs and fire is the minimum.
Yeah.
But if we had the full funding, like basin 3. We would put the sidewalks in like that, yeah, but.
We would be, so if we did went the other route and we made it more stringent for an overlay project or a major, like a paving project. Like right now, we've got areas where there's no sidewalk, curb gutter, core drainage. We don't address it, like Front Street, right? We didn't address that when we paved Front Street.
No, we put back in pretty much.
We did. We did some storm improvements.
Yeah,
to-
right,
to
some.
match up, but-
But we didn't do curb and gutter and sidewalk through there, or anything
Correct.
like that. But. Isn't that in the long run more financially advantageous for us? I understand it increases the cost of the project, but putting in stormwater assets that are actually efficient. Like, gonna actually do the job as opposed to filling the ditch.
The stormwater's improvements are important because you don't want water to get into the
Right.
sub base of
And
the
if we're the
roadway.
paved
And
assets.
so Jay's
curb and
walked
gutters
the
gonna hold the
project.
pavement in, right?
You got it. I walked the project. We spoke at great length about that. We did a bunch of regrading, try to get the water off the edge of the pavement over there to a ditch. Those sorts of things were being incorporated in the project.
Similar to Park Street to where that ditch was a foot off the road. And we moved it.
Yeah.
Over, so we would just go underneath.
Your question is, right?
Well, you get where I'm kinda going with this,
Exactly,
like,
yeah.
Because
Should we just do it all?
we're kicking the
You
can
should plan accordingly.
when we're doing overlays.
We are, and that's where it's tough though, because I
I
mean,
know.
like, let's say we decided we were to do what we would have done. A quarter of Park Street. So we would have done the sidewalk and the gravel and the curb and gutter, because that's what we had budget for.
Right.
Or do we put
We
down
need
more
those, right?
road, or do we,
Yeah.
do we just go smaller in complete infrastructure?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
it's.
know. That's it.
Right.
That's
Yeah,
it.
well, I would agree, if we have more street funding, more
Yeah, of
money,
course.
then we would go to a higher level of improvements. At a minimum, I would think you'd put all pedestrian improvements in, you'd pave the base improvement and you'd put sidewalks on both sides. And then ditches, right? And then the curbs would come next and all that, you know, you sort of work your way up. So there's a lot of counties make you put the sidewalk in at a low ultimate alignment and grade of the roadway. To get the pedestrians off the roadway and over there.
Because it's kind of my other concern, I guess, is the majority of the larger paving projects, right, the road's gone to failure. It's not strategic preservation at this point, right? It's basically capital. So do the damn sidewalks for the gutter. If it's chip seal, you know, and we're just trying to buy another 15 years out of the road or something like that, then yeah, like, I don't want you to have to try to finance that, but if it's gonna be, you know, you're gonna grind an inlay or you're gonna pave, and the road's at failure for our road rating, whatever, then I would be looking at a bigger project. Because I think then we'll be back here in 10 years doing another $500,000, $200,000 paving job. I guess I just think of like Park Street, we're gonna be back pavement, and that's not a knock on the job, it was just. Truck traffic is still going down there, there's no curb and gutter. We're gonna erode, the roadway is gonna be deep. In 10 years, we're gonna have another $250,000 paving job for that little chunk of it. I don't know.
And I don't think we will, if we can keep the water away from the roadway, we need to move it away from the roadway and pipe it out of there, right?
Yeah.
And so if you can do that, you've succeeded, so we won't get any heavy rainstorms, I haven't driven it, you know, since we got done during a heavy rainstorm. Specifically going out there, but if there's any ponding along the roadway that's getting up near the pavement. Our storm drainage group needs to take care of that for any roadway wherever possible, right? So I think that's a good, you know, best management practice.
Yeah. Okay. I'm not opposed, I just.
What about? So. With that, we can clear that too, what about for residential roads too? Is that? And we'll go with whatever the group decides, I mean, that's what we're here for, but we just need to, we're gonna have to modify our way that we do things, so because it's like C Street. Right, you know, we didn't put sidewalks, curves, anything in there, we overlaid that road.
Yeah.
And there's little funding,
Great
outside funding for residential roads, right?
Yeah, yeah, and you know, great benefit for the driver,
Yeah,
that's it,
right.
neighborhood still.
Well, and also you're not gonna have as many large, heavy trucks on those types of roads. You shouldn't have high speeds on those types of roads, things like
Yeah.
that.
I guess in the residential zones, I'm more apt to wanting curb gutter and sidewalk than probably anywhere else. So, you know, so if we are gonna make those investments in the residential areas, then. You know, because that's what's gonna attract people to those areas, and.
But I mean, this goes
Yeah,
back to why
it's-
we're sitting here right now, then we cut out the infill development lots from even doing that, but then we say we have to do it, but then. These other small spot lots don't have
Yeah, I
to,
know.
so that's why there's a lot of cities that say half street improvements, curb sidewalks everywhere from here on out to eternity. So it makes it really easy, we keep out of a lot of complicating things, but it is expensive.
F.
Mhm.
F is a big one for us because we have. These projects that have these streets that are just outside the 5-year NOPED and utilities want to come in, take Cascade Natural Gas. Things like that want to come in and replace their stuff. And we have a road that is 70 or better on the pavement index. And so this is our first shot kind of attempt at looking at other cities and coming up with a plan on how we're gonna put our set of conditions on them if they want to dig into the road, how they're gonna improve it. If it exceeds 300 feet in length or significant potholing. With a paving condition better than 70, that, they are gonna restore the whole road back to that pavement index, which looks like it's gonna be an overlay.
Okay, when you say the whole road,
The whole length of their
This is
project.
300 feet
Yeah.
or more, whatever their project is, plus 10 feet each way is what we got in here.
It's like
Local
Cascade
streets will be
Gas
chip
or
seals.
ED and people put stuff
The
under.
city, we could go do a water line project and we need to chip seal, if we're beyond 300 feet. You're chip sealing a local road or overlaying an arterial or collector.
And if they're under that, we will accept the frontage improvement.
Mhm.
In lieu of kind of fee.
They'll be on the master fee schedule.
We use that for critical routes, is that what that? Or.
Correct, the frontage improvement fee in the municipal code for the sidewalks is critical pedestrian route, and then it also talks about roadway paving and that sort of thing in there. So those funds will be going to those type of projects.
Then we also have, for some of these larger projects that are still. Trying to get the road, they may not hit all the thresholds, the city engineer can maybe call it saying. Since you're gonna overpay that, bring it up to. The frontage and lieu of fee. For, we're gonna look to improve that and trigger January. Well, when we update the fee schedule to do that, and else, or else we have to open up the fee schedule and do that now. So we're gonna wait till January, when every year we update it anyway.
I mean, do we expect any more big projects from Cascade Natural Gas or PUD or,
Cascade's in town right now.
Cascade is.
but we could, but they're probably already permitted for that work,
They're gonna be over 300 feet too.
Yeah.
but they're already permitted for that work already. We wouldn't.
Some of it, not all of them.
No.
Phase 3 is permitted, phase 4 is still pending.
I mean, if we're gonna do that much.
We're doing that for it. I mean, but we're not doing the fee we're telling about to prepare it though.
okay.
We've already spoke to them about that they need to, the current code has to just keep the pavement condition the same, right? And so that's our current code. We wanted to set some actual metrics in there of what does the same mean? And so if the road has a pavement condition index of 50 or 30, right? Yeah, I mean, it's pretty gone. We should have already been on it. We should have been paving it, doing other things. 70 is a road that's probably 15 years old, might be 20 years old with not very much traffic on it, right? We felt that that street is in good enough shape, then you need to do something to it if you slice and dice it, so.
Well, I
But
don't
we had
know.
no standards to tell people what was the
Right.
problem, so that's what our goal was here.
I don't have a problem adding that now, since, they're gonna be doing more projects down the road. I mean, what they're permitted for now, obviously, is too late, but. But if they, for phase 4 or whatever, might as well get it in there.
And as we do our projects too, we will be chip sealing roadways or overlaying them.
Yeah, it applies to both.
Yep.
Right.
Where is Cascade Gas doing work right now?
Everywhere, pretty much.
Okay.
For like a year now, haven't they? Maybe 2.
And we did,
Live in different areas. Yeah.
we did have that, they overlaid that portion, it was in the no cut.
Yeah.
But, and then they chip sealed some other roads up on, that's in the town too.
Can I come back to this, or I'm doing the narration in my head, because the impact. Has already been bought and paid for, the improvement has already been bought and paid for, now you're gonna cut into it. Create an impact, you gotta pony up for your impact.
You break it, you buy it.
You're gonna degrade in public infrastructure, right?
So you're gonna make it better.
And especially Turner, when
Yeah.
we try and talk to them ahead of time, and give them full, saying, hey, we're putting these roads in.
Correct. We
Yeah.
we communicate with some of the franchisees.
Yeah.
Right, and say, when we are working on a road, it's your turn to come in
Yeah.
and upgrade your utilities while that is opened up. Otherwise, you have at least 5 years where you're not touching that.
So they wait 5 years and a day and the road's still in pretty darn good shape,
Yeah.
right?
So, okay, so who pays for the utility relocation? That'll be fun.
Do it.
We're gonna move all your utilities and you pay for the cost. Okay, yeah, I mean, it happened to us at the Coffee Creek Fish Culvert. We had one of our city water lines.
Yeah,
It
exactly.
wasn't our project,
Wasn't our
not
project.
an impact to us.
Get it out of the way.
But we had to move it for another person's project, and we had to pay 50 Gs
Yeah.
to move it. So, the 3,500 utility rate payers paid for a
Yes,
utility relocated to Berkshire
Yeah.
that had no impact or nothing to do with it.
the benefits, yeah, exactly. But it,
So it goes, yeah, I guess it goes.
realistically, they're replacing aged infrastructure too, and they're taking the opportunity to do that while the ditches are open, the
Yeah.
streets open. That's more realistic than some realignment. I mean, it'll happen. We'll realign a street and they'll have to realign their utilities at the same time, but. Western Gateway is a good example that they just went in and improved their infrastructure while the street was open.
Yeah, we come to all our pre-construction meetings.
There you go. So they are invited to the table and design and development of a project, whether they choose to pay attention and.
You got
That's- Sorry.
And so one of the things I might have Aaron work on is where are our street plans for the next 5 years, 8 years, push them out a little. These are the local street overlays, chip seals, all that. Try to get a better job with Todd Roads of where we're going next. We did park, we did front, we did railroad. We have a map for the next few years. But let's really get into that map and think about it a lot more, come up with the costs, look at our funding, look at the grant opportunities where we're getting assistance from the state. These are the collectors and that sort of thing. And really develop the program a little better and then be able to get that over to Cascade and say, hey, here's our map for the next 8 years or so. This is sort of in our horizon. So you guys, Cascade, Comcast, us, we need to get ready for these streets to be redone and give people a lot of time, right?
Yeah, and instead of doing expensive trenchless and slip lining and pipe bursting, they can do it the cheaper and easier way.
That's correct,
As long as
because
that's-
then we go and seal it, so that's the best world, but absent of all that, this policy still helps us.
Okay, and this is the infill development standard matrix. Kind of a flow chart and. It's good that you all look at this too, because. When me and Jay and a couple other people review it. It becomes really easy to us, we know what we're wanting to say here. So reading through it, we're like, okay, we can go through and follow it quite easy. But we want everyone to be able to just walk in and be like, yes, this makes exact sense. I'll be going, right? High expectations.
That's right.
Are sidewalks adjacent to any of the undeveloped parcels? Or are they on a critical route? Yes. You're constructing sidewalks along the parcel frontages to ultimate alignment and garage standards. So kind of covers. Like we said, sidewalks to know where if there is none. Pay your frontage and blue charge and there you go.
And so that fee, you'd pay the sidewalk frontage fee, it'd go into the fund to be used to build sidewalks on the critical pedestrian route.
And then street frontage and alley frontages, off-site street. Improvements. Standards, This is the street or alley or off-site street unimproved? Yes, this is what you need to bring it up to, struck interim street to the standards that we have on 2.160C. And then 8-foot parking strip on the site frontages. Alley and extent of the existing improvements within 15 feet you have to connect to those. And that could be gravel. That could be paving. So whatever the existing there is, if you're within 15 feet, you connect to it. Offsite. Construct paved offsite street for section 2.160C. Basically bring it up to fire code. Good with those? Okay, so are the streets unimproved? No. Is the street, alley, or offsite gravel 10% or less? Construct 20-foot wide gravel street to fire department, 8-foot paved parking along the site frontages. And then paved frontage charge.
So what this is a gravel road in front of your house. Okay, it's 20 feet wide today, 18 feet wide, whatever it is. But you need to, and it's less than 10% slope. This comes from the fire code. If the street is steeper than 10%, they want it paved. Okay. Because their wheels start spinning and that sort of thing. So that's where the whole 10% slope thing comes from. It's fire code driven. You can leave it gravel, okay, in this instance, but you're paying a fee in lieu for the pavement that you would have put down, right? So we're trying to get everyone else the same. If you're developing, these are for the small infill lots. These are less than 150 feet, right, of frontage. That you're paying a pavement fee there. So pretty much everybody there's a quality. So you pay the pavement fee, or you go pave the roadway, right? Or you're building a sidewalk, or you're paying the sidewalk fee. So everybody is sort of impacted in a similar way.
And is the street gravel and over 10%, and you have to pay because it says fire did not go down that stop very well, and it's not paved over 10%. Alley frontage is the exact same. It's match what's over there if you're at 15 feet, and then.
And just so you guys know, the reason why we said whatever the alley is to sort of extend what's there. The frontage is where the fire department accesses. That's generally we're trying to get neighborhoods safer, right? This is a small development. It's just a spot by spot infill, and whatever the alley sort of is, whatever your neighbor had going on over there is what you put in. We weren't too concerned about alley access. We're just trying to get the fire department to get the people home, right? Now, you can do more than that too. If you want to pave the alley or do some other things and put a garage in from the back, that's just fine. But the minimum standard is whatever it's there, just extend it.
And then offsite leading to your site, it's over 10% paving that. Is the street or alley or offsite street paved? Yes. And you are paving the road, or not, you're paving the parking strip along the straight frontages and extend existing curb. This within 15 feet of the site.
Makes sense to me.
Alley frontage is the same. Paving the offsite to these standards.
Where are we? We talked about the last study session about the 8 lots in a row, and the guy builds in the middle, and then you wanted him to curb gutter sidewalk after improvements all the way to the next road. Where are we there?
150
Big.
feet.
Well, no, I'm saying it's more than 150. I mean, so that guy has.
He's under 150
He's under
feet,
150 feet.
so he would, so the improvements would not apply.
Just his lot. At
Yeah.
some point, they're gonna apply.
The
I mean,
people
if
around
there's-
him,
If there's
if
10
they-
lots,
Right.
right? And the guy here in the middle builds, and there's 5 more lots, is he building?
Those
that
are
road?
other people's requirements. There are other people's lots. If you have one lot and there's 4 lots of alternate ownership on each side of you, you develop that first lot, it's under 150 feet, you don't have those frontage improvements required. Now, if somebody owns 4 lots beside you, right, that's over 150 feet, they're putting in that frontage improvement, right? And then you build it in the
From
middle,
corner to the-
you got it. No, across the
Just
frontage,
across the front.
across the frontage to the, right?
That's why the number makes it nice and easy.
Okay, so that was.
Are you
the
talking,
150
are
feet
you
was the
talking
change.
about like capital?
Well, if it's one owner that owns all 10 parcels and he's gonna develop all 10, he can recoup his money any way he can, but the guy who buys the lot in the middle cannot recoup his money. If he has to build 10 sidewalks, so I mentioned to Mark that we allow that property owner to have a latecomers agreement and charge the next guy. Has to pay him, for that road, but it sounds like we
When you
changed that.
The latecomers agreement would require the improvements we put in first,
From the corner.
yeah.
Well, yeah,
Yeah.
but we've changed that from the last study session. Last study session, we were talking about that would happen. But now it's not gonna happen because of the 150 feet.
Correct.
We would not want somebody to do an improvement across an undeveloped parcel, because if somebody comes in next year, they can blow through that. But want access.
He would have to do the French improvements on his side.
Yeah, but it sounded like the last meeting that we were gonna require him to go to the next road that was paved. Because we talked about that quite a bit.
That's only if it's unimproved. He would have to do a 20-foot access to his site.
So if he bought let's say you inherited a lot in the middle of a block and there's nothing either way, right?
Yes.
And you build your house street improvement for the section, and then you go back, because this infill standards doesn't, you don't meet that. But you go back to the prior page and you would have this interim offsite street standard would hit you. You need to build a 20-foot wide roadway all the way out so the fire department can get into serve you. Now, what that means is it might not be economically feasible, right? Just like a sewer extension that's 1,000 feet away, right? And so you gotta wait sometimes for your neighbor to bring improvements to you, just like in the UGA, you have extension of streets and utilities and that sort of thing. So that one lot owner might need to wait for his neighbor to develop and bring the street to him, and then he continues it, right? So that's how that works now. He could do a latecomers agreement also, right? So if he chose, that's another option.
That all sounds fine. I'm still a little concerned about the house burning down and being rebuilt within a year or two. That they would have to come up with money out of their pocket to do that. But everything else sounds fine. Because it's gonna happen. I mean, it's gonna happen.
I do believe that concern is taken care of with the 150-foot thing that we're talking about. Because they just be with that, in that situation, they'd just be dealing with the front of their house. So if they've got a 50-foot long lot, they just be doing their 50.
Well, that's still gonna be.
Yeah.
But
Oh,
$10,000
agreed.
of money that they're not getting from the insurance company to rebuild their house.
Well, now there has to be, that'd be a redevelopment site. There has to be a sidewalk adjacent.
Correct.
And most neighborhoods don't have any sidewalks,
Right.
So I don't think, I mean, there might be a rare instance when that happens, but.
The house that burns down, if there's fronted and they want to rebuild and there's a sidewalk on the next lot next to them, then under this proposal, they would have to extend that sidewalk. If there's no
Yeah.
sidewalk next to them.
Yeah.
They can build their house,
Yeah.
have a nice gravel parking strip and.
I believe
Carry
they
on.
worked through your concern. For the most
Yeah.
part.
And I am kind of thinking about this too, like. I mean, come on, how many of these are we talking about here that are gonna be popping up? Is this something we got 15 of these a year that we have to go through, or
No,
it's
I mean,
very
if
infrequent?
you look at kind of some recent fires or maybe even
Yeah.
some code enforcement cases that might require abatement.
Yeah.
I mean, there's probably more now than there's going to be on a regular basis because of our lack of code enforcement, frankly.
Yeah.
And abatement processes,
Right.
but we're addressing that and we might have 5 or 6 of those in the next year or two. I would hope with a robust proactive code enforcement program, yes, those are severely diminished.
Yeah.
Some of the fires have occurred at places that frankly need code enforcement.
Yeah.
To occur, right? And so if we're proactively providing code enforcement, we may avoid some of these instances where we lose a house because of a fire. And then we don't have any redevelopment projects coming down down the pipe.
Preventive maintenance for you there.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's not. They're out there, obviously, right? We've seen them over time, but. We want to match up
Insurance
infrastructure
issue.
too. It's one thing I've heard of it too, is matching up infrastructure if we can. It's not only an imposition on the developer and the homeowner, but it's also if there's some infrastructure in place, do our best to match that up so it's consistent throughout our community as well. And that patchwork, because, you know, in that instance, we might have patchwork, right? If you don't require that sidewalk to be extended there, you could very well have a sidewalk to nowhere on each side of that, right? And that doesn't promote that consistency that we've talked about previously as well. But please, I want to hear about this matrix, the
Yeah.
page 5, some of the standards, the definitions, and then the improvement standards as well. If you haven't had the opportunity to provide your input, please feel free. I want to capture that the best we can today, make any more refinements that we have, because I think we're making great headway. We're coming to basically a consensus here, but I need to make sure that we have that leaving the room and everybody has the opportunity to speak their mind.
This is clear to me, and I'm not a professional developer. So
I'd love to see these for more of our development standards, just even getting a new construction permit, make it this simple. Are you building a new house?
yes, or
Were
no.
the utilities on the line before you?
Yes.
Like, I
The
mean,
matrix is-
I mean, the matrices.
The only way to make it easier is if you color coded it.
Yeah.
Well,
Green, red.
Yeah.
Yeah, because you can
Stop.
send it to somebody, and someone like me can understand it.
Yes, I want to appreciate everyone's effort here in making it very clear, and I'd like how we're moving towards a higher standard that people can plug into in the future. So that's where I'd like, if I were to make a mistake, I'd rather make a mistake on having higher standards that we can plug into the future.
Does
And that
this
we
make
have that
sense to you?
certainty. Yeah, totally makes sense. But if we do make an error, make it so that we have high standards that people have to connect to, and that if you're gonna play in Shelton, you have to play to the higher standards. Cause I'm sick of patchwork. I want people to have certainty when they come here. When you come here to Shelton, we're gonna have high standards for standards of living and environment, you know? So here's what you need to do when you come to Shelton. It's all drawn out. It's color coded. We'll color code it. And let's get the development in the water and all the things we need to make this a better situation. But let's have that high standard that people come here, that they know that it's gonna be a fair situation for everyone to come and play here.
I said my piece.
you're still, okay.
I'm good.
I want to make sure,
No, I'm good.
I want to make sure you understand that, though. I know because that's a big ticket item for you, and it's been a big ticket item for years, and I want to make sure that you're comfortable with that moving
No,
forward.
I'm good.
Okay. The end of the table.
Good.
No, I think you guys did a really fine job of taking all of the feedback from the last 2 sessions and really concisely addressing it here.
Watching Shelton get primed for new streets, we get buildings painted downtown, that one there.
Oh,
on
my
First
goodness.
Railroad. I mean, it's starting to look good
Nice.
downtown.
And I think that's a great, thank you for bringing that up, because that's a great point, this, similar to the way Miguel phrased it as well, it's like, we're on the cusp of major residential construction boom. We should not be settling for subpar products,
That's
we
true.
should be focused on a community where people wanna live. Sense of place, some unique, but not being over the top about it either, be reasonable. Come to the table with, rational solutions to this and, but don't just give it away, in my opinion, don't just let developer just dictate terms on everything. I know we want the rooftops, it's gonna happen,
Yeah.
so let's have good standards in place that, I agree.
The easy way to govern, right, is Jay and I have talked about this, and Jay would probably wish we would have done that before, is, it's all or nothing, right? Because he wouldn't have spent the last 70 hours something working on this.
I've
and
been here
everybody
at
else.
10 o'clock
Yeah,
one night.
so,
and you can believe it.
it's full street frontage improvements for any development, or it's nothing. That's the easy thing to do. That's not why we're here, right? We're here to find a happy medium. We're here to serve the existing community and our residents. And we're here to make sure that the new development that we have, the impacts are mitigated as much on our existing residents at the same time. And this isn't the easiest subject matter to do that. It's much more easy to do with a sewer line or water line or something like that.
And let's be honest, the reason why it's not easy is because it's expensive.
Yeah.
Right?
We get to go deeper, we
It's
get to
not
go wide.
complicated in
It-
terms of the project. It's
Yeah.
expensive, right? It's an added expense.
For the
to
city
catch
too, because if we
Yeah.
set
For the
that
city.
standard,
Yep.
we'd have projects that we wouldn't have done right now. But
Yeah.
because.
No. Yeah, we wouldn't have paid Rockdale. if we had-
And what's a public
Sidewalks,
expectation,
$3 million
right?
pavement.
What's a public expectation? Is the public expectation to have those urban facilities and urban infrastructure in place when they move into this community? Or are they gonna build it later? And then are they gonna seek those urban improvements to be completed by the city later? When you live on a gravel road for 20 years, you
Yeah.
are probably coming back to the city on a constant basis, right? Asking for that gravel road to be paved. And if it isn't upfront at the time of development, we have a very difficult time doing that later.
Never happens. Will never happen, right?
Puget Street's been gravel for 100 years.
Mhm.
I remember 45 years of probably,
Mhm.
right?
That's, if that ever gets paved, curb gutter and sidewalks, nobody's got a front yard anymore. On either side.
Yeah.
So August 15th, street standards are coming your way along with the administration chapter 1 of the design and construction standards. We're not doing any edits to storm, water or sewer in the manual. We're just doing streets and the admin chapter. So the first 2 chapters to get this behind us, get these standards in place. And so we can move forward. So at the 15th, we will be with you guys talking more about this. These were the heavy hitting items in those new standards. There's a lot of the smaller stuff that we'll go over with you at that meeting.
Is there a public education kind of component to this too? Once we ratify this in August, we make these changes. How do you guys interface with the developing community to communicate these changes, other than just posting it on the website,
Yeah, we have history in our permitting system, because what we've been running Intergov for what, year and a half now? Maybe
Year.
Only a year?
Yes.
Okay, I went over a little bit, but we do have all the different civil engineers and developers. We got a contact list. So at a minimum, we're going to provide the link to these new standards, and then we'll meet with them to go over some of the changes. Most of them are larger subdivisions that we're doing full street improvements.
Our small developers aren't a large number, and we have contacts with them. Hopefully, people are pre-subbing their projects. They get more information at all times, but if we build the right matrix and build the right standards, these can be communicated across the front counter by a simple phone call.
And I guess where I was going with that was just that, it's like continuing to push people into that pre-sub discussion, because
Yes,
at least from everything I've heard, it's the front counter moments where, that could maybe kind of possibly, and then they go and they sink money into it. My heart goes out to them, right? Because they get a good idea, they feel good about it, but they make a phone call or something, and then all of a sudden he's right.
Yeah.
Right,
Oh, wait,
it's like,
can't
right,
be
right,
that.
so-
we've heard it plenty of times, exactly.
So as
And-
long as we can accommodate that and educate, and before they
Yeah.
plunk money down or
Yeah.
before they go full hog,
Please.
then, yeah.
Promote that.
I have
Maybe-
engineered flat roof plans that I can't build in a residential zone because we can't have flat roofs. Oh, wait, no, it's the CRV. So I can't build them wherever I was. And that was my fault. I didn't do something.
Well, and Mason City Master Builder is another
Yes,
resource for
absolutely
us to reach out for sure. But I think for me, the only thing is like, again, continuing to compare this to our other building codes, et cetera, so we don't run into down the line, well, here it says this and here it says that,
Yep.
even like frontage.
Yeah,
That
absolutely. right.
conversation we have tonight, and I appreciate you guys continuing to work through and refining some of those, so we can have more clarity and predictability into that process.
I want to touch base on the pre-sub too, real quick. When we don't have adequate staffing, it's more and more important that people take advantage of those resources, not rely upon a planner or a building official or a superintendent or a city manager to give them code compliance on development projects, right? We can't capture the entire project over the counter. We can't capture it over the phone. We can't capture it in Safeway.
A Google map. Not
Exactly.
it.
Yes, exactly right. So we need to have that project in front of us. We need to be able to digest that project, analyze it, provide feedback to them in a clear and concise manner so they can make the best decisions in their pro forma moving forward. And that's really important.
But our decision's only based on what you hand us, right? And so the quality of materials needs to increase some because we're having a difficult time with some of the things we're getting that we can't answer a lot of questions. Because there's not enough information on those pre-subs.
So the pre-sub stops it from them not asking us the right questions.
Times have changed. My stepdad tells me where he built a house here in town. And it's still standing, by the way, that he drew by hand.
Yeah. They have changed. Yeah, absolutely right. And even more so than we utilize the process we have available. So somebody that may want to do that can find out what the requirements are in that instance, or, I mean, because you can still draw your home's plans, you really can. You can take them to an engineer and have them engineered and be done fairly, you know, it's not out of the question if you have some skills. So you can still build your own house as well. There's some hoops to jump through. It's a little more difficult than it used to be, but that can be done. We can assist people in meeting their goals.
Most of mine suck really bad. But I get an engineer to stamp them, so.
So is everybody, can we move on to the second part of the study session?
Oh, there's a second.
Is that okay?
There's all-
Is there a Break or
Yeah,
anything?
thank you so much. Appreciate your feedback, input
I think
in this,
Jane did
Good job,
in this
guys.
long process.
This is awesome.
No, thank you, though. I didn't bring one.
If I hadn't had that on there, but done my job.
So at your next study session, that's on the 8th of August, FCS group will be giving you the preliminary calculations for the 2024 through 2027 water and sewer rates, okay? The new rates, we need to set new rates for 2024 before 2024, right? And then also the general facilities charges, well, also they're looking at those. So that's for sewer and water. One of the larger drivers of rates are the capital improvement projects, right? We have our existing operations and maintenance and those sorts of things. But then on top of that, we have projects, right, that need to get done. So we can keep up with existing needs, replacement of infrastructure, and some capital needs for new development. In a perfect world, you'd be ahead of new developers, okay? So the general facility charges were set darn low, okay? If those charges would have been set at a more moderate rate in the past, as development came in, we could keep ahead with reservoir projects, piping projects, that sort of thing. That's pretty typical. Right now, we're at a standstill with reservoir storage, that is holding up development. I've explained that. And so the goal is to get out of this situation over time. And so I wanted to do is go over the 6-year water projects for you, and then the 6-year wastewater. So I'm going to start with water, and Brent's going to do wastewater. So the high school tank recoating, if you've driven up there, you'll see why. That tank needs to be painted, okay? And we just had the inside inspected. You guys will be seeing the inspection report. I think the inside coating should be fair, maybe to pour, but it isn't completely shot on the inside. Remember, this is a 1962 tank, right? It's going to need to be, end of life's going to need to be called at that tank down the road, right? These steel tanks don't last forever. Concrete, you get much better service life out of. This is a steel tank, but we do, the state Department of Health, when they do their survey, this has been on their list every year for a lot of years now. And so, you know, this is just a deferred maintenance project. Counselor,
Inside, right? Or the outside also.
outside needs to be done. The ends, because it's starting to rust from the outside. The inside, we just had an inspection done. I'll know more here. They're typing up the report right now. We had scuba divers go in there. They clean the bottom and they inspect the whole thing. But right now, we project the costs. We have the interior and exterior costs. Right now, I have like the full cost for painting in there, but hopefully we don't have to do the interior and we just do the exterior. Note that tank is not seismic either. There's very limited tie downs on it. So down the road, this type of infrastructure. We need to get away from, right? Because we're spending a significant amount of money to paint it. And then the painting interval increases with the age of, it's like your house that keeps peeling more and more and more. We're painting it more often. So eventually, these older tanks need to come offline. And so this is one of the VHC consultants is assisting us in the reservoir evaluation of the whole system. Is this really what we should be doing here? Or should we be building one big larger reservoir somewhere else? Throw in some ideas. Because of the deferred maintenance and replacement costs of some of these older reservoirs, the lack of seismicity of them, it might be important to change the way our current comprehensive water plan is and get away from a lot of little smaller tanks and maybe put in some bigger tanks. So anyways, this project is out there a little ways, right? It isn't anything immediate.
I have a question about that.
Yes,
And I love artwork and all sorts of cool things around town. You see in other cities, these water tanks with businesses that paint their business on the tank, and then they pay a monthly charge back to the city or whoever to have that. Is there a possibility? I know that that's like an artsy type of thing, but would that be a possibility? It wouldn't, help our finances any, but I'm just thinking, make the tanks look.
I mean, it's potential, but what's the content of the display, right? How do you control that? What business, what have you do that? And then a lot of our tanks are pretty hidden, to be honest
Yeah, I
with
was
you,
thinking that.
right? They're in wooded areas are harder,
In
like,
residential zones.
yeah, like that high school tank. It's off in the bushes over there. It's a little hard to see. So I like the idea. We have right now it does have the city logo on it. I don't know if you've been up there in a long time. I mean, I sort of like the city's logo on it. Most people, when they repaint tanks, they keep the logos off of it. But I think something like that would be a good idea. When we do a tank project, we'll check into that more though, as we repaint them.
I know there's a concern what would be on, but we would make the decision what would be on the tank. Just like the wraps on the boxes, we
Yes.
make.
I would caution though, if you are selling advertising.
Yep.
There's a financial benefit to that advertising, right? So.
Right.
It would not, it would have to make sense to the city and to
Yeah.
our constituency, right? And it has, at the same time, has to be appealing.
I mean, you see that big tank that's up on the hill, up by the South Puget Sound Community College on the other.
Yeah,
end.
that's to blend it artistic. It's got trees painted on it.
Yeah,
That's not
it
necessarily
just-
advertising. So that's an
No,
added
that-
cost to make that more
Right.
appealing visually. Absolutely.
It looks really cool. Anyway,
So the next project is Upper Angleside Pressure Zone improvements. This is how we start navigating our way to allow Coffee Creek, Bayview Estates, other developments. We did get a $1.8 million legislative grant, which will go a ways to that $3.4 million project. We actually have a meeting tomorrow with PHC consultants to talk about their pre-design report that council approved. And so we'll have some really good information this week on the costs and sort of step A to step C to get that pressure zone with proper reservoir storage. The well one, the high school tank project, that's underway. The design's probably at 70–80%. We just sent a bunch of comments back to the consultant, and that was some grant funds of about $2 million. And so that's already been budgeted funds by council. We hope to have the out to bid early fall this year and start construction, hopefully sometime around March, and be done before summer heat and summer high water use season. At the same time, we're looking at working on the well one site, and in with the well one, the high school tank project, or following soon thereafter, is get a generator in at well one. The chlorine at well one is right next to the well, and it's hard to navigate in there. It wasn't set up to be a chlorine. It was put in a long time ago. They didn't chlorinate the water. We need a building next door so we can put the chlorine and get it delivered to the site too. Right now, we're hauling up chlorine to the site, and I'd rather get it delivered there. And then at well 3, 4, that there's a generator there, it'll only run well 3 or well 4. It needs to be able to run both at the same time, or there's a separate generator for each well. We need to evaluate that project down the road. This 500,000 gallon Angleside pressure zone tank. This is some years out. We need to fix the dead storage in the existing tank. And then follow some years later with the additional 500,000 gallon tank, so we can build out the rest of the pressure zone. That's the expensive project. That's a $5.5 million project. You can see I put it out where I thought we can get some capacity out of the existing tank right now if we can get rid of the dead storage. But that is $5.5 million. Right now, I have no grant funds for it. I don't have any GFCs for it. And so that is a loan project in the current rate study, because that's my only funding source right now. Okay, I'm not saying that's going to be the funding source, but that's all we can count on right now to get a tank in to continue developing up there in the Angleside zone. So it's a little bit of a driver of rates. And you'll hear more about that on the 8th. About that particular project, because it is expensive, but it has to be done and it has to be paid for. Now, general facility charges for the reservoir will be collected over time as people develop. If the GFC's rates right now, they're at $1,620, pretty low. They need to be to 3,000 to 4,000 to start backfilling some of the funds to pay for these future projects, right? So that's sort of the way to get that worked out.
I thought the grant for 1.8 was for the tank on that you got on 6.
No, the grant was to
The pressure zone itself, it could be the tank, right? But
Yes.
if we have a fix to fix the pressure zone and get capacity within the existing tank, that's the most reasonable way, the most effective way to spend that money up front.
Because right now that's holding up
You got it,
any development.
You got it.
On that side of town. I mean,
correct.
you're talking 700 homes that cannot be built because we don't have a lot of capacity to serve them.
So we're talking 9 million for that area.
Yeah.
We're
Yeah.
6 and
Yeah.
6
Yeah.
and 2.
Exactly.
The
So-
grant was,
The tank doesn't fix it by itself.
it's not high
No.
enough. There's
No,
I mean, a new tank, you still have to change that pressure zone somewhat because you'd have to repipe based on that new tank's location and existing. As you know, that pressure zone extends from Eaglewood and everything up on the west side, southwest side of town, all the way out to Bayview on Dickinson. So you have a lot of elevation changes. You have a lot of different types of construction. And then you don't have enough capacity and storage to meet fire code at the same time.
So they barely have enough pressure around the tank. Coffee Creek actually gets a little bit higher too for some spots. And so that pressure zone, the higher pressure zone needs to come online to get people 40 PSI, right? So anyways, we're gonna find out a lot more tomorrow with VHC.
And we'll be able to provide some more detail to you on that, yeah, after the meeting
A
tomorrow.
lot, a lot of these projects might be eligible for the recompete money, right?
Certainly, yeah, absolutely right, great point.
Well, I would just almost say the 27,120,000. Submit that.
Yeah.
So that's the whole plan, right?
Right.
Our whole capital improvement plan is only 27 million. I say that like it's no
For
big
water.
deal.
Water, sewer, storm.
Yeah, water sewer storm, but the whole 6-year plan for all those 27 million.
This is water right here.
Oh,
Yeah,
The wastewater is 32.
and
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
There you go. There we go.
Oh.
It's just a lot of.
Yeah.
It's like, that's not- so.
So a couple more projects here, Redwood Avenue, 8 to front. It's an old asbestos cement line, needs to be replaced, new ductile iron pipe. We're gonna do it about the time that the road needs to be resurfaced also. So that's, you can see it's out a little ways in the capital improvement plan. Project number 8, this is an option you guys haven't heard about on K Street. There's an existing, it's an old PUD facility. And it's a construction yard right now. There's potential for the city to perhaps purchase that. I'm going to talk to you down the road once we get the rates sort of set about this project. And it allows us to not build a brand new yard right away. The brand new yard will be postponed for a significant period of time because it is quite a bit larger and it does serve a lot of our needs, especially when you combine it in the existing yard. So it's more of a least cost option for our laydown yard, and I'll get a study session with you guys on that in the near future. This a new storm water and wastewater rate and GFC study is planned out and some years out, right? We need to plan for these studies because we have to adopt new rates again in the future. And then the other ones are these are out a ways. So well, actually the Mountain View pressure zone storage tank, the 0.7 MGD. Peacock Ridge is going to be putting that tank in. They got a lot of units connecting in, and they're going to pay for that. It's likely they'll get a portion of general facility charge credits, maybe not for storage, but for, well, actually storage that they offer others, because the tank's gonna be a little larger. So we'll need to get that worked out with them. They might get some, and when they pick up building permits, they get GFC credits to capacity they add to the system. So there'll be more there. The Upper Mountain View pressure zone, there's supposed to be 2 tanks installed up there. Only one was put in. That could have been used today, that second tank. And so Shelton Hills will need to put in that tank to serve their zone. And then Capitol Hill has a bunch of pressure zone improvements up there. And it isn't really a large enough zone to even have a reservoir up there. So we're gonna do some repiping and take out the reservoir. And then on the next page, we separated it out by engineering projects. And then these are just maintenance needs, okay? So the maintenance needs are done by staff. The prior page, you have to hire a professional engineer and a designer and construction plans and all this. So we have, if you go to the comprehensive plan, there's just general system repair and replacement. We have a large water system right now. The comprehensive plan is recommending $170,000 a year. I'm funding it at 30, okay? Just to get us going on it. We're not going to be able to afford $170,000 a year of water projects. That's cast iron pipe, asbestos cement pipe, new hydrants, you know, that sort of thing. And so the hydrant flow replacement projects, they had $106,000 over 4 years to go fix all the hydrant problems. And then I set it down at about $50,000 a year. I jumped up for 1 year. Just to start getting those hydrant projects done per the comp plan. You can see I have tank inspection out there a little ways. Again, you know, we need to stay on that every 4 or 5 years. There's a lot of water system security upgrades that we need to complete. And that was a plan that we had done about 1.5 years ago now. And so you can see I'm just sort of putting some money out there to get us some upgrades done there. We do have vehicle replacement, all of our funds, we need to replace vehicles over time. So you can see, I put that in there at just a truck every other year sort of thing, to keep that going. We have vehicles that are, 20 years old. I know Parks has one that's maybe even older than that. So, we need to start working our way out of that. Some of that is when we replace our trucks, the older trucks go away. So the oldest truck will go. So water gets a truck, right? It sort of cascades down and the older vehicles start going away, right? So we're doing that. So as other funds replace things, we're getting the vehicles and taking care of the older ones. So in our sanitary study this year, the reservoir rent vents do not meet state standards. And just found out they wanted them done this year by the end of the year. I was like, no, I need to budget that project. I mean, that's $200,000, and so they were okay with that as long as we were funding the vent replacements in the future. That's screening up there and the size of them. They don't meet Department of Health standards. There's just general equipment replacement. That's old trash pumps. We want to go to some trailer mounted pumps. We need some new generators, that sort of thing. Put a little bit of money in there for that. The Angleside booster station needs a third pump. The two pumps that are in there are extremely old. We rewound the motor on one. Neither pump has been rebuilt for 20+ years. I want to put a third brand new pump in there. That way, if one of the other two go down, I have a brand new pump laying there. It's set up for it right now. So that's used rate funds also. Project number M9, what this is emergency water distribution. Okay, right now in a large natural disaster, I'm gonna have a problem getting the community a gallon of water a day. This is an extended event. This is most likely a large earthquake, right? Or very large fire, maybe a big, large ice storm that just goes on and on and on. We don't have power, we don't have diesel, the water system goes down, you know. We need to be able to tow trailers to sources, treat water, and people can come in and fill up and get a gallon of water a day a person. It's just a best management practice.
Water buffaloes.
Now, these things, hopefully they sit all the time, right? I'm okay with that, but we need these in our back pocket, right? In Newburgh, we did it. We actually had 15 of them. And we actually had portable suitcases and a different scheme. We're a smaller city. We should be able to pull off trailer mounted with multiple spigots on it.
We work with county DEM, John Taylor to
Yeah.
get some, it's 150 grand. They just bought like a $50,000 quad side by side. So can we see if we? can-
Yeah. FEMA funding and
Yeah.
everything.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So a little bit of money for an M10 for the pavement projects. That's where we have, if we're doing pavement, you have water valves, you have other things going on. Now, there are some years where I might need to replace that whole water line. That would go up to project M1, and I would have some funds to put in that I got a block of water line I gotta do before we can pave the road, right? You don't want to pave a road and then go back and cut it up, put the new water line in later. We're trying to get it done beforehand, right? And then the last one is just general building repairs. That's to the existing shop, pump stations, you know, that's roof gutters, HVAC, doors. These facilities need some money put into them. They're extremely old, and we need to start putting a lot of money towards that. That's it for water. Brent has sewer.
Front Street pipe removal, design and construction, that is the pipe that goes underneath Hillsborough, kind of by First Street Bridge. The one that, the pipe bridge is over it, it's our force main coming from Front Street, but if you look off the edge of the bridge, you can actually see the pipe underneath Hillsborough. And we use it as an emergency bypass into working on the pump station right now. And it kind of actually works, I guess, at Front Street. Fails if the back being completed too. So that would be a project that needs to get designed and probably there's gonna be a lot of permitting, and we're working on a pre-design report that Parametrics did, get it fully designed. Probably be a good one to look for some grants and stuff like that for it, but we need to have it designed in order to do that. Basin 4 I&I reduction is the remainder of the Hillcrest area, which includes Puget Street. So we want to get cranking on that before the development comes in. If that road gets paved, we need to have the infrastructure under it in good shape. Springs Road extension. This is a project that was important in the county.
Just support.
We got a grant and we have a 20% match on that, and it's basically running from Tractor Supply all the way down Springs Road.
There's good economic development possibilities there, right? And the mobile parks up top there, like Evergreen Estates, their wells and their septic systems are right on each other. So it takes care of quite a few issues there, and it gets for some capacity until the MBR plant is upsized a little larger.
The camp projects, those are all those are projects that we do to try, we have a meeting with Department of Health. The tribe to try and reclassify the plant, and get some more shellfish area open out in Hammersley and Oakland Bay. That's some valving, some return flow system that we actually have. Portions of that already done, but it's helps with the monitoring. Headworks. Capacity upgrade, we got a grant for that. We need to, we had an engineer's estimate come in about 500,000 over. The grant that we received, so we need to. We'll have that as a project in the budget. We have to have that money ear tagged. For them to make that grant money real.
Right, can I ask you to pop back? I think we missed the lift station and that was a big
The
ticket.
North
item.
Division,
Oh, we do.
I was wondering.
Well, fine, we're just gonna-
and it's part of the recompete.
Yeah,
Yeah. So that is the property we purchased by the cell tower. Some piping, we'll have an overflow that it can, because we only have so much capacity at the MBR plants, we can control flow. How much we're sending there, so we don't overload it, the rest will overflow to main plant until we eventually upgrade the MBR plant, and then we can divert. And it will actually help because in storm events, we can cut off some of those peaks to that pump station also.
Long term, right, we're talking about aquifer recharge, Goldsboro Creek recharge, diverting our outflows into Oakland Bay up to the satellite plant up by Sanderson Field, so there's economic, ecological benefits to this process and producing more reclaimed water that can be used for industrial development up in that area of the community.
The MBR filter replacements, that's out there ways. We did that a couple years ago. Last year, or last time, we got about 10 years out of the filters, so there's not enough for ways.
And the goal is on that one too, is the newer filters actually have more capacity in them. When the last filter replacement came out, they were sort of the cutting edge and we didn't really want to be there. So we put back in an enhanced version of the Kubota filters, right?
Ceramic, right?
What's that?
They're ceramic.
Yeah, there's.
Yes. I think I remember buying those.
So you buy extra ones to put aside?
I think you kept some of the older ones you pulled out.
Yeah, we kept the okay shaped ones, but they are very available locally, so. Yeah, I think they started Kent. The reclaimed water tank, we are hopefully in the next month or two gonna have 90% design on that. And hopefully get that out a bit soon, so.
We got through the pocket golfer study.
Yay.
That's important. They're out there in that area.
What was the result? What was the
We
report?
have a little mitigation site for
My cats have mitigation site for them too.
not helping that.
Mitigation.
Yeah.
Bring them up to the.
them. We'll have a great home for them.
The reclaim plant property purchase, this is with our new permit that we're going to get, they mandate that we have to be able to put 24 hours of off-spec water. So if it doesn't meet the reclaim standards. Right now, we can take it out and just use it on the spray field. But with the new permit that we'll be getting, it's mandate that we have 24 hours of off-spec storage, whether we use it or not.
So the other goal of that property purchase is if you go down to the main plant, there's no room left down there. Right? Well, this is a huge, expensive asset and there's no room to expand it, right? So you're talking 30 years from now, you have a smaller plant, but it's very likely it's going to be a very large plant someday, right? Because all your sewer is going to one spot, just like down there in Oakland Bay. So we need to make decisions in the best interest of long term, right? And so we would like to buy some more acreage. So, 20 or 30 years from now, there's more room for, banks 5, 6, 8, 10, whatever. So the plant can continue to expand into the future. So that's working with the port, perhaps with the adjacent property owners. It does slope off into their properties, but there's some potential availability around us.
And then the multi-funded is K Street, maintenance shop. Yard. And then also another rate study in 27.
Yeah, these are just all future projects from the comprehensive plan, so you can see they're stacked up in here, right? That there's quite a few, and we didn't even add these up, right? That I have the costs in here for them, but they're out in the comp plan past 6 years, right? So I just wanted to show you guys, the comp plan is a 20-year plan. These are just the additional projects that don't land within the 6-year period.
And it's good to have them in here and all this, and we can. Money breaks and things like that. So. Running a line clear out. From PUD. And then.
Actually, it's a Bonneville substation right on Olympic Highway, Brent. Are you talking about Olympic Highway?
Oh, it's just the trunk line, okay.
Yeah, I think it's the Olympic Highway from just past K Street, just past. Down to C Street.
Okay.
Yeah, the pipe is big
This is,
enough.
update the,
Yeah.
The trunk line
Yep.
behind Fred Meyer. It comes out of there, it grabs in someone that, Shelton was good.
Yep.
Their next one can tie into that.
But it's pretty much at capacity now. Shelton Hills is gonna just right at the limit of, reaching capacity of that line.
And then a comp plan update to. Basically show everything, when we have the comp plan, it says, okay, little spot here, this will be a pump station. But it doesn't give us kind of the ultimate build out, the UGA. On saying, this is where the lines are gonna run. And where they need to run, so that's kind of, we're diving down a little bit more into that comp plan and bringing out. Okay, this is where people need to connect to get it back to our plans. And then camp compliance is all Oakland Bay. Backup disinfection system, we have a model of how we can turn the slack tight tank into a backup disinfection system with chlorine if needed. And these are all driven, and a lot of these they're not funded because. On the design, because they're preliminary design, but unless. We're not gonna waste money on something that isn't gonna open something up. Right, so we're not gonna do this project unless we can say, oh, it's gonna open up shellfish ground. To do it.
I think unless you want to extend past eight, maybe you can pop through these since these are future.
Yeah,
Projects that aren't, that aren't costed out right now. We can answer any questions that council might have. And then. If you want to extend, certainly feel free.
Well,
Opportunity is yours.
I just know we've been talking a few years about injection wells or spray fields to not put anything out in the bay. Is that still 20 years out?
That's the satellite, so that's the improvement of the satellite plant, the tank, the reclaim tank, and then that diversion, so I think, what are we talking, at least preliminarily, the time frame here, right, funding dependent.
yeah, that's a lot to.
North diversion tank, up to 2028 preliminarily to have that, and it really doesn't happen until.
And it's grant funded too.
It's gonna need some upgrades down there, probably make it to different standards and inject it somewhere on that side.
Yeah, we talked about buying property above the treatment plant there on Fairmont and doing injection wells and
Yeah.
spray
Yeah.
fields there and not putting anything out in the bay. I know that was kind of a.
The satellite plant's the most reasonable way to do it, because then you're recharging Oakland Bay. Or excuse me, Goldsboro Creek Aquifer, and you're producing reclaimed water that can be used for industrial purposes, right, for economic development and job center and job creation in up in the Darcy and Sanderson field areas. And those are recompete projects. Those are projects that are included in our recompete ask and will be provided for. And if this community is successful in obtaining those funds, that could certainly be an infrastructure game changer for this community, right? Because we're talking about sewer capacity, we're talking about reclaimed water. Our tribal partners benefit from this, our habitat benefits from this. We take capacity and increase capacity down the main plant if we need it. It's really a game changer for us. So we're really kind of throwing all of our you will,
Eggs in a basket.
eggs in a basket, yeah, indeed, but this is an opportunity that, you know, Congressman Gilmer has promoted for the, you know, Olympic Peninsula here in Washington, and the opportunities are in front of us. And we've got a number of agencies here, including, you know, the county and the two PUDs and our tribal partners and school district and a lot of different folks working hard, you know, led by our Economic Development Council and Chamber and everybody else that is in this community, working hard to make sure that this is our best foot forward to make ourselves available for these funds.
We can also try and use that as some offset or some mitigation for new wells.
So Brent, you just want to go over, if there's a maintenance project, hey, we talked about the capital improvement projects, there's just some maintenance things, the vehicle replacement, Brent, if you can start with that real quick.
So we have a smoke testing in the basins, just making sure all the downspouts, there's no storm drains or anything draining into our sewer, cuts down on the INI, increases our capacity. Front Street lift station, relocating the check valves, they're pretty low, so they can fill up with sediment. So we have a process right now where we exercise the pumps to keep them clear. Manhole lining, just to cut down on INI that protrude in, you know, a lot of these manholes are in high water table level areas. Yearly pavement, that's when we do a road, we want to make sure our infrastructure is good underneath of it. Assess the condition of the force main going to the treatment plant, do an inspection report on that. Large equipment, this kind of goes to where we're trying to fund some. Have some pumps on the shelves, so we can. One goes down, we can send it out for repair and put a new one in. And not be down.
What happens when you get a permit violation, the common theme is something went down, you're fine, you're resilient. Then something else happened to another part of the system. A lot of times you can recover that, and then all of a sudden that third thing comes along and it's just completely unexpected, big rainstorm or something. And that's when we get into violation. So as these facilities get older, especially these like the large wastewater plant, what are we, 10, 11?
Yeah, it's everyone. Knows that it got upgraded and it was expensive, but it's 11 years old now, you know, it's not something to need.
Still trying to lower those sewer rates every election cycle.
Yeah,
It's gonna be stark reality that we have to buy another one. Sorry,
pay
guys.
for replacements, we have some pretty old vehicles in our fleet, we like to switch out. And then, yeah, the plants aren't new anymore, so we need to do some maintenance, HVAC systems, roofs. And then, capital pump station.
Just confirm with me, so the 6-year outlook where we've got dollars programmed in there, those are funded or unfunded or under?
Right now, this capital improvement plan for water and wastewater was given to FCS Group. They show funding these in their rate models with some rate increases that we're going to talk about on the 8th.
some of these big hitting numbers are a lot of grant funds, so, they're kind of.
Yeah,
There's told in the narrative, Springs Road, the Edwards, a lot of those have, and there's probably about $6 million worth of grant funding there.
And that'll be in the rate study of the grants.
Yeah, they reduced the cost of these projects by grant amounts.
I guess my point is, looking at 23, 200K. And then we go to 7 figures and like this, to 29, well, then for 26, I'm looking at just the water. comment. I guess I'm concerned with, adequate staffing to pull that all off. We're strapped right now for 200K to $1 million worth of work, right? So how do we incorporate our FTEs to support the capital delivery?
They're included in the rate study as well.
So they'll be included as
As,
part of the rate
as
study.
well as the needed engineering staff
Yeah.
or engineering, contract engineering staff to complete the project
Great.
as well, yeah.
So what the council needs to absorb is though, while we're in a budget crisis, we will need to add staff over the next 6 years to carry out these programs, which these investments in and of itself are an economic driver. Right?
Correct.
So, yeah, when we go from spending 200K on capital to 8.5 million in a year, like we're gonna see that in sales tax for sure. Like that's gonna come back and reflect on our book. So I guess again, we can't get to a point like 27, 28, and be like, yeah, sorry, you can't hire any more people to do this. I guess we're gonna have to figure that out, right? We're gonna have to make sure that we.
Personnel cost is not reflected in the 64 million roughly we're seeing here from the next 6 years of projects. That's
Exactly right.
additional
The
investment,
CIP, no, the CIP is total project,
Right.
right? Construction project design.
right?
The maintenance projects, yes, it is.
Okay.
Yeah, staffing is included in there.
Maintenance was sorry, real quick, maintenance question. I saw, you have maintenance tabs in here for things like vehicle replacements and stuff, but what about actually just maintaining the new asset? And the costs of doing that, because we're gonna have higher tech, newer things that are out there that aren't what they were before. There's gonna be more scrutiny as environmental regulations can, continue to rise and DES and all this other stuff, right? So how are we factoring maintenance costs?
Yeah, so what that is a growth of the number of users of the system will assist us significantly in paying, the bills of the future. Right, that on the sewer side of it, a lot of this is grant funded and that sort of thing. But we can't have the users right now because of the water hiccups. We do have quite a bit of sewer capacity though, because of the prior investments. So having additional ratepayers would be helpful.
You want to extend?
It's up to you, Mr. Mayor.
I'm sorry.
And if we have more questions, we can spend for a few minutes and make sure if it's another 5 or 10 minutes to make sure we cover all our bases tonight
Yeah.
before we walk out of here.
Can I get a motion to extend this 15 minutes?
I moved to extend it 10 to 15 minutes.
Second,
All right, a motion to second is to extend the meeting for 15 minutes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed. All right, okay, keep going. Thank you.
So just getting back to the question at hand that we're posed for some significant residential development. And so, our costs are going up every year. There's no doubt about that. We have to improve our systems. There's no doubt about that. But the goal is that as we add more users into the base, as long as we're, doing a couple hundred single family homes a year sort of thing, that it helps out the utility funds, it helps out the general fund, it helps out downtown, everything starts to work.
So that rate study is huge for the next 6 years. Well, for the long.
It sets the stage, right?
So making an arbitrary swap, cut at the rates, we just screw our capital plan. So if FCS group comes back to us and we don't like their numbers and we cut them down and say, cut it by 50%, or we don't want to be the highest, we want to be the lowest, let's go somewhere in the middle. We start throwing darts at it. We got to be prepared that anything that we factored out in future years is going to have to get recomputed. And I don't think that's something we've done before, because we've cut down your rate studies, because of the sticker shock to that. But we have not seen the impact of making that change in our capital improvement plans.
We're
Yeah,
seeing the
same.
impact now.
Right.
on our water
We
system.
we didn't know what that would
Yes,
equate to.
yeah,
We
I-
just didn't want to be expensive,
Yeah,
right?
I think we are,
We don't know what we are
I think we're realizing that a bit now with our water storage capacity issues. Yeah, exactly
And I
right.
think again, when those things are brought to us to ratify a rate or something like that. Knowing what that affects down the road. Very clearly, like you guys like, 'cause this is really easy to understand how much things are gonna cost and when they're gonna roughly hit, right? So again, if we cut rates, when we do this rate study, because, you know,
And FCS can show what those different rates mean to the capital program and
And
the
maintenance.
M&O program. Jay has run through it with them. They can do some real-time adjustments for us. Obviously, you know, we have a certain amount of time and there's some flexibility. You know,
And these are rough calculations
Yeah.
they'd be doing in front of you,
So-
you know, we would need to propose
well,
something.
no, I
solid.
would want you to go back and like,
Yeah.
come back.
Yeah,
and say,
exactly.
Here's, so you wanna cut it to whatever
you
percent,
can't
then
see,
this is what the next
Yeah.
6 years. will look
yes, exactly right.
like. Okay. That would be helpful.
I've heard a lot of things that we said would be good for grants. We don't actively have grant writers right now, though, do we? Because I know we've got a lot of grant money, but do we?
We're dedicated.
We're not, and is that like, do people pick that up as projects? Or how do we get grants written to us now?
Existing staff.
And are
We,
we're delegating or are we?
no, we don't, yeah, we don't. Have the luxury to delegate really.
Yeah, I just don't, I don't know.
We get a heads up from DOE, DOH, our on-call engineers are aware because they're seeing stuff come through. The legislative grants that we,
Legislative asks.
you know,
You know, obviously our, Mr. Nichols, has done good work for us over the past several years and bringing in about $11 million. The recompete project rely upon kind of the consortium, if you will, local entities, to.
There's a grant writer in
to-
there,
to seek-
consulting firm.
Consulting
helping
firm
out.
grant
I get
writer in
that.
there. There's ability to maybe expand upon that too. We've had
Yep.
some discussions
Okay.
to bring in somebody that might work with local entities as a grant writer, and we wouldn't bear the entire cost of that. So there's ongoing discussions there, but at this point, it's either existing staff or based on a consultant that works within that
And
field.
that's a lot of state funds.
Yeah, and then-
For that staff.
Correct.
We want to start accessing the Fed dollars.
The big
which are
dollars.
the feds and unions and-
Yeah.
And where am I missing those discussions? Where are we having them here or are we?
EDC mostly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
But I mean, are we missing out on grants? Everybody wants a grant writer.
Yeah.
Every day I
Yeah.
watch
Every-
that.
yeah.
And it's just, it's a level of preparedness that we have to have. We have to have projects ready to go. We have to fund projects and design.
We have to get it done too.
You gotta be able to get them done, you gotta have the staff.
And,
yeah.
We gotta be
Aaron.
prepared. If a project, you know, Fed grant 750K or more, we have to be prepared for a single audit and pay for
Correct,
those
single
costs.
audit.
And you gotta manage the funds appropriately. So there's a lot of little things that'll get you. But yeah, Fed Economic Development Administration grants flying through for everything.
Okay.
Like infrastructure programs on down, and we just need to reach out.
Frankly, one of my fears with having a grant writer on staff would be getting too much money and
Delivery.
making too many
Give money
commitments
back.
and us not being able to deliver. We have that right now at TIB, correct?
Yep.
The Transportation Improvement Board has said, you're not eligible for any more funds until you start spending the funds you've received, right? You need to execute, you need to obtain completion of these projects. So.
A lot of general fund positions, is what I hear on some of that stuff, right?
Yeah, but they're within the engineering fund, within the general fund, which are funded through rate transfers, right?
But they're back office type positions
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
You know,
Is that correct? It's not lost on us, right? We think that's very important. We think it's very important to make these strategic infrastructure improvements. Because as we talked about a lot here today, the growth is necessary, economic development is necessary to buoy the city and for the city to prosper. And it is paramount to us that we are proactive in that today. Because we will continue to suffer from that if we are not.
I'll get deeper on it. So I'm just gonna ask that by
Great.
people about grants and why aren't going for these.
Okay.
I know how to answer them.
We can do a better job of providing you that information. So you. so
I've
you
never
see
asked
that.
either, so.
Yeah.
No, that's fine. Yeah.
And some of the stuff requires, you know, an economic development strategy that is approved by an economic development district, which we don't have. We're in the process of establishing that. Balti County, you know.
I'll let you offline more about it too.
Yeah,
Again,
a lot of,
I feel like it's something to start bringing up.
Absolutely.
When
How
other
much
people.
do we have in our the transportation benefit district fund? How much money do we have?
1.6 million, I gave that report about a month ago,
Okay.
2 days ago.
Why are we not using some of that money?
No, that's TBD, we're picking the TIB funding, right? So you're
transportation improvement board.
Yeah,
versus
transportation improvement. CIP,
TIP,
excuse me.
that was, we spent that money on Western Gateway.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we have,
We received some for some intersection improvements, correct? Some TIA funds up on Wallace and what, Spring Road?
Yep.
Yeah, so we have some funds sitting there for design for that project, which this team has kicked off.
Just had a meeting today about it.
Roundabouts?
Needs to be spent, well, intersection improvements.
Potential.
Whatever.
Modern intersection improvements, whatever they may be, right? The study has to be done, it be warrants, yeah,
I already did that. For those two intersections up there, Brockdale and.
things have changed
Yeah.
every
Okay.
day.
Can we shop this ever? Hey, look, we got $27 million for the water projects. In the community, do we ever try to bundle this up and say, I'm going like design build route?
Yeah,
on
right,
this,
exactly.
Do
Not
we
that-
incentivize any of this in some kind of, do we have a method to do that?
No, there are methods where it's a contract general manager type of project and you bring in a larger contractor and they bring in an
Then we gotta
engineer.
have some
and they-
cash on that up front. right?
Yep, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Big money up front, but the cost savings.
Yeah.
And the ability to get a project completed and managed and out the door,
Mhm.
I don't know, is
Yeah.
that feasible for a small town? It's a new way of managing the
We
project.
were talking about, consultant fees at 2.6 or.
Yeah, markups.
A markup to
Markups.
2.6, so if you're getting a break on that by shopping it. potentially, but-
I guess my break is more of the accelerated time.
Yeah. True, and the economic benefit of an accelerated.
I know the cost,
Yeah.
the bottom line is higher,
Yeah,
But-
absolutely,
but looking at 2030 and out.
Yeah.
Of this.
Yes.
Versus,
yes,
right,
Yeah.
so.
that'd be an interesting discussion to have with maybe some of our partners that we work with, or
I talked to
some
Clayton
sales
Construction about it and they would be interested, they're huge. In that type of partnership, but they wanted, $10 million worth of projects lined up to look at it, right? And so it needs to be, to attract a high quality company, it needs to be a 10 to $20 million total package project, and you need that money there, right?
Scaling FTEs to build out 10 to 20 million over 10 years or 6 years versus.
Yeah.
I don't know, I'm just throwing things
Yeah,
at the wall.
yeah.
at this point, but
Well, and certainly if the recompete
Yeah.
funds start becoming a reality, that might be a broad, more specific conversation.
Yeah, I really appreciate getting the education on the CIP and the list of projects. It's good to keep this in your binder. So that is a big topic. What do you need
Yes.
money for? Right here. You need something. I just want to slide it.
Why
across
not rate so high? There you go.
Well, and that's it. If somebody else can pay for it, then the rate won't be that high.
Correct.
But if we gotta go bond it. Here we go again.
All right, any other comments or questions?